everybody. We are just driving back from visiting Homestead, which is a community just outside of Miami. We're driving back to Miami now. And it's also home to a detention camp for immigrant children. These are kids who arrived after making a hundreds of miles long journey from Guatemala or El Salvador or Honduras, the length of Mexico, arrived at the U.S.-Mexico border, perhaps in Texas, along the Rio Grande, were apprehended and are now in this detention facility. They may have previously been in other detention facilities. Certainly, they were probably held for some time at a Border Patrol station. We've heard horrifying reports of what's happening in one of those Border Patrol stations just outside of El Paso in Clint, Texas, where kids for weeks have been held without the ability to clean themselves or brush their teeth or have their diapers changed. In many instances, it's kids taking care of kids, toddlers who are being cared for by children who are not too much older than they are, very young mothers who are children themselves. So some of these kids may have spent time in a Border Patrol facility like that, sleeping on a concrete floor under an aluminum blanket before they come to what is essentially a tent encampment. It looks like a POW camp or a military-style camp behind fencing. All the children wearing orange hats. We were able to look over the wall by standing on a stepladder. And some of the reports that we're hearing out of Homestead are just terrible. Children who are punished for having any kind of physical contact with another child, including a sibling. So, you're locked up with your brother, but you're unable to touch him. And just imagine you're a kid, you're a stranger in a strange land. You've just survived this journey from Central America. You don't know where your folks are. You don't speak the language. You don't know how long you're going to be detained. You don't know when you're going to get out. And the one human contact that you crave the most with a family member is denied you, and you're punished for just being a human being. And that's what we're doing to these kids right now in Homestead. We heard reports that when these children turn 18 years old, they are taken in custody and in handcuffs to an immigration and customs enforcement facility where they are prepared for deportation and removal proceedings. So sent back to the very countries from which they fled in the first place. In many cases, fleeing for their lives. These are the deadliest places on the planet today. And it's why these kids and these families and sometimes their parents are leaving. It's because they have no other choice. This is all they can do to be able to protect themselves and save their lives. But I also want to tell you that we met a lot of amazing activists who are out there right now holding vigil. Mariana, who greeted us when we drove up. Tomas, who explained some of what's going on and described the conditions there. Guadalupe, who's a teacher, she told me, and is talking about some of the social, emotional, and educational needs of these kids that are not being met right now. And we also ran into this guy, Josh, who we first met a year ago in Tornillo, Texas. This was another infamous camp city for kids. And Josh and others showed up and made sure that the rest of the country knew just what was being done in our name. And I think they helped to form the political will to eventually close down Tornillo. And that operator no longer housing kids in a tent camp closed down. It's going to take that same kind of pressure and awareness and that same kind of shock to our conscience to get the country to respond to what's going on in Homestead. Right now, we think there are over 2,500 children who are being detained. They're obviously against their will, unable to join their families. A situation complicated even further because now Health and Human Services, who has custody of these kids, is sharing the information of family members who step forward in the United States to claim the kids, like an uncle, an aunt, a dad, who says, hey, that's my nephew, that's my child. I want them to come live with me. Health and Human Services is sharing the parents or the relatives' information with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which means that if in the sponsor family's household there's somebody who does not have immigration status, they may be compromised and may themselves be deported or held in a detention center. So fewer families are able to come forward because they're at risk of having a family member deported or detained. So this is really inhumane, very cruel what we're doing to these kids. And this is all a matter of choice. This is what the Trump administration has chosen to do to these kids. In this, the wealthiest country on the face of the planet, in this, a country of immigrants and asylum seekers and refugees from the world over, this is how we're treating these children who've been seeking asylum. But thanks to the activists who are there, those who invited us to come see this with our own eyes and to tell us about what's going on, I'm confident that this story is going to get out where people in America are going to learn about it. Many people are asking what they can do. Share this video, share other videos about it, share great reporting in the New York Times today about conditions there, other reporting that you might read. Make sure your friends, your family members, your colleagues, your classmates, your neighbors, everybody knows what's going on. It's the only way that we make it better, and that is that political pressure I was talking about that gets members of Congress to go sponsor the necessary legislation to hold this for-profit corporation which is housing these kids. I learned from Congresswoman Powell, who's a congresswoman for Homestead, who's doing heroic work on this. They make $775 per child per day in their custody. So we want to put an end to this practice, but it's going to take your pressure to do that. Amy, what were you going to say?
Well, that's what I was going to mention, that this is a for-profit detention center, and so there's this incentive for them to keep the kids there longer and longer and make it more difficult for the sponsoring families to get them back. And then another thing to mention is that on July 12th, all across the country, people are holding vigils. It's called Lights for Liberty. You can go to lightsforliberty.org and find out the participating cities. And so hopefully thousands of people across the country will be getting out there to make their voices heard.
Let me show you something. I hope I can find it now. There was, so we have a friend. Oh, here it is. We have a friend, Ellen Gavin, who made this sign. She's coming down to Clint, Texas, to hold vigil and make sure that those people in her life know that we're detaining kids in Clint, Texas, in these terrible, inhumane conditions. And she made this sign that says "End Kid Jails," and she's bringing that down to Texas right now. So she'll certainly be part of that day of action, and we invite everyone else to join. Everyone who's going to make sure that we do the right thing while we still have the chance to do the right thing. So just wanted to report back to everyone about this. I think we live streamed on Facebook too, if you want to see the full video and hear the voices of some of those who are camped out right now just outside of Homestead. Amy, algo más?
It was intense, but glad that we went. It was powerful.
Yeah, really, 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 really amazing people who are doing this work. So
they've been there every day for 138 days to bear witness.
Yeah. So Mariana, Guadalupe, Tomas, Josh, others that we met, others who are out there right now, folks who are coming down to Homestead, Florida, to add your voices and your presence to this protest and to make sure that we change these conditions. Just want to say thank you and just tell you how important this work is and how grateful we are to you. Adios.